right, so welcome to Lunar Alchemy. Tonight, we are discussing the shadow of chaos. The moon is at the the 3/4 mark, or is it the quarter? No, it's the quarter mark. We just came away from a new moon, so it's about a little over a week old. And I don't know about you, Bella, but I've certainly had the energy of chaos really really turned up in my world over the last couple of days. um,
Yeah, I'm thinking about the word in the I Ching. We're calling it difficult at the beginning, and that is what I can say more than anything. We were launching actually our course, in that we're going around the wheel, and I've been working on it for the last 6 hours exactly. We did a webinar and then it was great, but then we realized that some part of it was better as teaching. And then, we were kind of picking it apart and making it organized. And that is also what the third hexagram is about, is ordering, structuring. So I feel like I'm very much feeling into this energy. And I also am longing for this kind of transition into more of a Taurus energy, which is my sun sign. So yeah, I can feel the difficult at the beginning, and I feel maybe more a little bit of an, I don't even know if it's an inner chaos, but yeah, I feel more of the difficult in the beginning, but I know that there is something that you're saying too. Maybe I'm just not wanting to see it or wanting to feel it, possibly.
well, while I was just taking a walk, thinking about the energies that are coming through this particular transit, and what does it mean to experience chaos? What's the difference between chaos and order? As we examine the expression of nature, oftentimes we can look at it and think, oh, this is chaotic. There's weeds growing everywhere, and half of the things on the ground right now are sort of in a state of decomposition. Other things are growing and sprouting. Meanwhile, here in Colorado, we've had a couple of snowstorms over the last week. It's getting on to late April. It's spring is fully here and it's still snowing. We can relate to all of that through this experience of chaos, meaning we have no awareness of the order underlying all of the expression that's going on. And yet humanity has developed to the point quite a long time ago where we had this innovation of the calendar, you know, probably thousands and thousands of years ago. I doubt that we are aware of the first calendar that was created in harmony with the movements of the cosmos and the seasons and all of our experiences of nature. And that innovation gives us the ability to experience the expression of nature in a way that we say is orderly. Oh, well, it's spring. Oh, well, we're in Colorado. Of course it's snowing in spring. It always does that. Wherever you are, maybe if you're in East Asia and you get to monsoon season, that's a time where there could be an experience of total chaos going on. But for a lot of people that grow up in that environment, it's just normal. Oh, this is what happens every year. um, so, so it kind of occurred to me to a certain degree that chaos is not really a, a description of what is actually occurring. It simply describes the experience that we have in relating with what is occurring.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, if you're in a place of peacefulness with all of the changes that are going on, you're probably not going to feel very chaotic, you know. But for me, over the last couple of days, I had a lot of chaos in my body going on with um, blood sugar levels going way higher than I expected, blood sugar levels going way lower than I expected. It's very common for people with a condition of type 1 diabetes to have these low blood sugar crashes because we've taken a little too much insulin. But for me, that normally happens like seldomly, you know, maybe once every couple of weeks it'll sort of happen, or a couple times a month. It's been happening multiple times per day for me over the last couple of days. And I realized that I was simply not having awareness over the processes of metabolism that were going on in my body. So it appeared like something random was happening, you know. So perhaps, Bella, you're just in a place of rolling with the changes in an easy way right now.
I mean, I do feel, I love what you're saying, because once a month, or almost once a month for women with a moon cycle, it's like I am in incredible pain once a month, but it's only for one day. And it's, if I would be in that much pain and not knowing what it was for, and not knowing that my body's doing what it's supposed to do, it would be really, really scary. I would probably think I'm dying. And even the fact, that you're like bleeding, that I was just, I didn't think about that. With what you're saying, that is like, that's normal. That's going to happen every 26th day, So there's something very, very true with that. And I know my mom, who has a very, very serious condition. If she can explain her pain or why it got worse, then she can suddenly deal with it. But if she thinks that it's something that went wrong and she can't explain it, and then it's much harder. So when we can make sense of something, or kind of see that it's in its order, then it feels like, as humans, we can suddenly be okay with it, which is a little bit weird, because kind of nature is. But yeah, you're just kind of illuminating this concept, and I'm like seeing all these examples of how true that is.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up a woman's cycle as part of this, because it is related directly to the cycles of the moon. Many women may experience their cycles being in harmony with the lunar cycles, and in general, this isn't true for everyone, but in general, men just tend to be a little bit less connected to that experience of cycles. Um, but as those are occurring, the influence of these energies upon us are very, very real. So, when we can't understand what's happening around us, or we can't frame it into a form of order that we can know what to expect to some degree, or be able to sort of predict in some way, then that experience of chaos causes us to move into these different ways, different responses that tend to be fairly not to really support the evolution of our life processes. In the case of my example, um, I need to be more. I can take more steps of testing where is my blood sugar at right now. Exactly what am I consuming in terms of food? How many carbohydrates does it have, and all of those types of things? And am I tracking the timing when I'm artificially putting this hormone into my body that's going to cause my blood sugar levels to go down? And for those of you that don't know, all people that are alive have blood sugar. They have glucose in their blood at all times. Your brain uses that at a constant level, and your brain body has certain ways of maintaining that, even if you haven't eaten. So we're not like a car, like if you run out of gas, that's it. There's no more available. Humans have reserves. We have fat, there's sugar in a form of sugar in the liver. Anyways, that's a lot of details about that. But um, when I'm able to bring more awareness to the processes that are happening, my I'm not going to respond to it in a way of like getting frustrated and like throwing my hands up in the air and just eating whatever and not taking insulin anymore because I'm sick of it. Likewise, in your example, Bella, um, luckily human beings aren't at a point of unconsciousness to the degree that it would be surprising to us to for a woman to begin bleeding each month. Like, where did this come from? How is this happening to me? We understand that process well enough, and you can prepare for it and do what is necessary to move through that process in a way that works best for you.
I feel what you are saying in relation to that as well, that I mean, I can count whatever it is, 25 or 26 days every single month, and I could prepare for it. Like I could even say that day I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to do it
Right.
like you're saying, but like it always kind of comes like a surprise, and then I'm like, oh my god. So there's something beautiful with awareness where you actually can follow the cycles. The same thing, I mean, in Italy, when I lived there, it was so funny because in Sweden, of course, we have seasons. So there, of course, you're not using the same clothes in the winter as in the summer. But in Italy, there's this thing, and there's even like usually kind of a weekend of in the spring and in the fall where you do your whole change of wardrobe, and they speak about it as a thing. Have you done it? And
Oh.
it's very interesting, and that's exactly for them it's a thing, and
Yeah.
it makes sense, and it's good to prepare for it. So I feel like there is something, yeah, there is an awareness of cycles that actually allows you to be in harmony with cycles instead of being thrown off by the weather or by your body. That is, and somehow when we aren't really connected, or when we are a lot in our mind maybe solving other problems, we forget about these kind of basic things in the cycle, and we expect somewhere, well, the days are going to be the same. But then it's in a way, it's a beautiful thing because it's kind of like knocking us off our path that is not completely embodied and connected. Nature is taking us back and allowing us to see what this cyclic thing that we, the organic part of ourselves, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I love that idea that this experience of chaos kind of pushes us pushes us in a way that causes us to become aware of where in what ways we may not be in alignment. And that kind of opens to me the idea of the childlike archetype that is identified in the 64 doors, and how children embrace and play in a state of chaos without it often really disturbing them in any particular way. And I'm wondering how you kind of I'm wondering what that archetype really suggests to you in terms of either how we experience chaos, or how we can get more in harmony with the cycles of life energies that are moving through us, so that we can kind of learn from that archetype a more harmonious way of being.
Yeah, I would tie it back a little bit to the last transit of the 42 and the cycles ending. What I see, especially with small children, is like if you help them to kind of build something, and they kind of do it, but then they're just going to do like this and everything's going to fly, or they take something and they throw it on the floor, and it's almost, they don't have the seriousness of clinging to anything, and that is part
Mm.
of that shadow of the three. So for me, I feel like again, the coding of life and death. There are cycles and things are created, but if we cling in an attack, like if you cling to that creation, then life is not going to be easy. And I feel like children, they don't have that yet. They don't know that, that it can end forever. It's a play, and I guess that is really the playfulness of this archetype, and the courage to also destroy, to not just build but also destroy, the courage to not cling to
Mm.
our creations.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about how natural it seems to particularly small children, to behave in a what we may identify as a courageous manner of being, where oftentimes once you're fully grown, or you've reached a stage of your life where you're encountering your own fears that are coming up through the circumstances of your life or whatever, it requires courage to face those things. And oftentimes people struggle with that experience. Where do I find the courage to face this deep fear that I have? Whereas children, they don't have to gather any fortitude to destroy something that they've just created, because they're in such harmony with that creative play that it doesn't matter if you've destroyed something, you can just recreate it again.
Mhm.
It's like very, very easy. And they're small children, energetically speaking, have, as they are developing into human beings, fully formed human beings, they don't have the same energetics as somebody who's an adult. And as they're developing, the potential for creating those attachments, those energetic attachments that lead to states of clinging, begins to happen. Like, you can watch, oftentimes it happens sometime during the 2-year-old stage or so, where toddlers begin developing an aspect of their energy body that gives them an experience of possession. Mine, you try and take a toy away from a toddler in that state. Oftentimes what happens is they start screaming, like, you've done something awful to them. And we as adults will often respond to that 2-year-old child as like, why are you making such a big deal? It's right here. Like, you can have it if you'll just behave yourself properly. You know, Meanwhile, we're often not understanding what's energetically occurring there, where a 2-year-old doesn't necessarily have the discernment to understand the difference between an object and themselves as a subject. They see them as one being. So, that's the experience, anyways. So when you're taking that toy away, you're literally ripping off a part of their body, from their sense of attachments that are growing. And um, I think in a lot of spiritual processes today, especially, people talk about breaking your attachments to things. And and it's interesting to consider, for me, that you can't really stop the process of attachment, that it's going to continue on because we are in relationship. Everyone that is watching this discussion right now has some form of energy connection to what we're saying and what they are seeing. And and that's a form of an attachment. So don't want to like turn attachments into like this negative thing. However, it does appear that when we are attached to things being a certain way, and then life inevitably changes the environment, that it causes us problems when we see the environment not being the way we expect it to be. And we can become reactive, or we can become repressive over our responsibility, our ability to respond to those situations.
Yeah, I feel like that is going together also with some of this Taurus energy. Maybe we do want to share.
Yeah, let me give you, there we go.
So I was just looking at, because Taurus is also about creating, like, it is about our possessions. It is about creating that foundation. It is about being comfortable, having enough material, like comfort and wealth. And what I feel with what you are saying is that, you know, we have had Uranus there for a while. It's going to be all in all 7 years in Taurus. And I'm just waiting that it's actually going to come on my Chiron and my personality sun over here. And I don't know what is going to kind of activate, because Uranus is not, it's unexpected, and it's creative, it's kind of radioactive in a way. And right now we see all these planets coming into Taurus, and we also have Uranus, and Taurus doesn't really like unexpected. And it's a little bit like that, I guess, the very human part of us that has created that foundation, that has that comfort. And then everything is like, you know, not like that anymore, especially with that Uranus. That isn't easy. And I do feel like right now Taurus is also ruled by Venus. So there is this, it's about what we value, and, you know, how do you want to live, and what feels nice to you. It's, you know, beauty, sensuality, foundation, like all these things. I feel like it's a time now, as we go from one element, fire element, into a earth element. We go from a cardinal to a fixed. There is something, I feel like there in this, the child is like on a threshold almost, from, you know, from Aries to Taurus. And I feel like we are, when we meet next week, probably we're going to feel a different energy. And already it's like, at least for me, I feel like I'm longing for coming home to Taurus and Venus, after having been in this more like warrior, individual Aries energy, and kind of initiating but not really know what it is that's initiating. So we are on the cusp. And the interesting thing with this hexagram that the sun is in is that it has both sides of those two signs and two elements. um yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about how we respond to the energies that are coming through these cosmic alignments. And you know, you're describing this sort of yearning that you have for maybe some of that stability of Taurus. It's interesting to think about, okay, well, what is the shadow frequency of the very last transit in the Aries sign? Is chaos. And you know, like, what, when we experience chaos for too long, you know, some people can really thrive in the unexpected. But for many people, if you go beyond a certain level of being unable to have, you know, certain needs that you can depend upon, you begin to feel very, very unstable, and it manifests in these like negative behavior expressions that begin happening. So, you know, I think despite whatever, you know, for you, Bella, there may be some personal, you know, just because of your own, you're a Taurus sign, perhaps that plays into your yearning. But I think there is a degree of universality that that transit of the sun being in the gene key 3, the third hexagram, it causes that desire for some stability and some dependability, which are two very strong qualities that you find in Taurus. You know, that they're dependable, they, you know what to expect, they're grounded on the earth, you know, all those types of things. And what what that makes me think of is actually how, when we're in this energy of chaos, how we can respond in repressive and reactive ways, that we try to either um, jump ahead to the stability of Taurus by becoming sort of anal retentive and trying to control all of the aspects around us, or we want to go deep back into the fire of Aries and just have everything be unpredictable and spontaneous, and we kind of become this destructive force of messiness, chaos in our worlds. um, I hadn't considered that sometimes perhaps those responses to that, the shadow frequency itself, is kind of projections into the future or into the past.
Yeah, no, me neither. But I love that way of seeing it. And again, the cyclical way. I mean, I feel that's what we were looking at last week, those cycles, and really what we were just showing, that seeing it as cycles, like even the cycle of the year, we go through, and when we can look back and forward, which out without being too attached to the past or the future, it kind of still gives us this feeling of being on a journey, and a little bit being able to look ahead, a little bit being able to see where we've been, and then yeah, that, for me, I guess that it's important to not cling to. I mean, I can see that in some astrology circles or gene keys, like you kind of try to cling, not cling. You build your life around the numbers, and that's not what I mean. But I do feel that there is some kind of stability. Stability is not really the right word, but when we can look at the planets and how they move, and we can feel into ourselves, and everything is kind of microcosm and macrocosm. Like when we can zoom in, there is something that makes me feel like things make more sense than when I'm like just kind of, when I don't know where I come from, where I'm going, what's moving.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. That idea of the microcosm, you know, and focusing in on the littlest details, we can get way out of balance doing that. Whereas if you focus only on the macrocosm and sort of ignore the small world that surrounds you, you can feel swallowed up by the magnitude of where we are. And somewhere in there, there is a type of stability where both of those energies at play can, we can allow them both to exist without losing our sense of peace or tranquility or adaptability. Our ability to adapt to the changes that are inevitably going to occur. So I would love to, for us to move our discussion into, how do we find that space, that space where we can have that experience, so that we can set up the quantum healing transmission for this week's Lunar Alchemy, and kind of transform this experience of chaos that we may have from time to time, or if if this past few days, um, did this start on Friday, this transit, or Thursday?
We
Maybe
are in
even,
line 6, so I think,
oh,
right,
even
yeah.
before. Yeah. So for several days, this energy has kind of been building within us. And so I want to thank everyone for joining our discussion on Facebook. And we're going to move ahead with our solar members to receive the quantum healing transmission, and for the additional discussion that Bella and I are here to offer around sort of refocusing our awareness to move through these shadow frequencies, so we can experience a fuller spectrum of what's available for our life energies, you can click, there will be a link in the comments there to engage with that. Awesome. So